Hello! This tutorial demonstrates how to work with the Invoice module of the iForge Ahead Remote App, also known as iFAR. Let's get started from the home screen of iFAR by clicking Invoices. This will take us to a list of all invoices currently stored in the iForge Ahead Remote App. In this case, our invoice list is blank, but we can add new ones with the button in the upper right. I want to point out that iForge Ahead Remote App allows you to easily capture information about work you've done in an invoice and create the total while you're on site, but it does not contain historical invoices that are already stored in the iForge Ahead system. Let's begin by clicking the New button, and we're taken to the Invoice Details screen where we'll select the client to be invoiced, and if necessary you can also tap in the Date field and change the date using the calendar selector and then click Set, and you can also change the note by tapping in that field and changing the information or adding to it there. Once these fields are set as you'd like, click the Save button in the lower right. Now the Invoice Details screen has more panels for us to work with. The top panel displays the client name and shows the information we were just working with. We'll go to the Charges panel, which is where we add individual charges for the invoice. Let's click the New button, and now we're on a detail screen for an individual charge. We'll begin by selecting the horse, and if necessary we can tap in the service date and change the date there as well. Let's open the Select Item panel, and this will display a list of all your products and services from the iForge Ahead system. To find an item, you can click in the filter bar and type the first character or two of the item you're looking for, or you can scroll through to find the item you want. Select an item by clicking on it in the list, and now that panel is collapsed and shows you which item you've selected, and you can work with the prices if necessary. It's automatically set to your standard price with a quantity of 1 and adjustment of 0. If this is the price you'd like to charge, simply click the Save button. If needed, you can change the quantity and adjustment fields here. Let's change the adjustment to add $2 to our standard charge by tapping in that field and typing 2. Once you leave that field by tapping anywhere else, you'll see that the total has been recalculated. When this screen is as you need it, click the Save button in the lower right. Now we'll return to the Invoice Detail, and if we open the Charges panel, we'll see that charge that we just added. Let's add another charge for the same horse by clicking New. The iFAR system will remember the last horse that you added to the invoice and will automatically populate the horse field with that horse. You can change this, of course, if necessary. We'll leave that and go to Select Item, and in this case we'll select aluminum shoes and change our quantity to 4. Once we're done in this screen, again we'll click Save, and in the charges now we can see both charges for this individual horse, and you'll notice that it's subtotaled by the horse name no matter how many charges are displayed beneath that horse. Let's add one more charge by clicking New, and this time selecting a different horse, and we'll go to Select Item, and select the charge, and if we need to make any adjustments, I'll enter a different quantity here and click Save. Now in the charges, we can see that they're grouped by horse and shows individual charges. If you need to make any changes to the totals or any of the specifics, you can tap on the row. Let's go ahead and change this charge for Chipster by tapping that. And once we're in the detail screen for that charge, we'll click the Edit button in the lower right. Now we can make our changes, and in this case I'm going to change the adjustment. Instead of adding $2 to the standard price, I'm going to reduce the standard price by $3 by typing a minus symbol and then the 3. And when you leave that field by tapping anywhere else, the total has been recalculated. Now we'll save, and we're back to the invoice detail. Of course, you can keep adding charges in that same way as much as you need. I'm also going to show you the totals panel, which gives you a subtotal of all the charges that are currently in the invoice. The sales tax and grand total are currently set to 0 and will remain that way until you finalize the invoice. For information, it's also displaying the client's account balance, which at this point does not include this invoice because it has not been finalized. Let's go to the option panel for the invoice, and you'll see that there are 3 things you can set for this invoice. In the center you have a sent flag, and the purpose of this is just to help you remember which invoices need to be printed or emailed. And if they've already been printed or emailed or don't need to be, you can set this to checked by simply clicking the Change button to the right. Optionally, you can also finalize an invoice in iFAR by clicking Mark Final. We'll click that, and you'll see that its final box is checked, but some important changes have also taken place, which you can see by going back to the Totals panel. When an invoice is finalized, it will calculate the appropriate sales tax for that invoice as well as its grand total. And now the client's account balance has been increased by the total amount of this invoice. Let's leave this by clicking on List, which will take us back to the invoices list. And now, instead of being empty, we see the invoice that we've been working on. It tells us the client, the date, the total amount, and whether or not this invoice is set to be synced when we next sync with iForge Ahead. This is an important flag, and unlike other records in iForge Ahead Remote App, invoices, new records that you add in the invoice section, will not be synced into the main iForge Ahead system until you tell it that that invoice should be synced. This allows you to retain an invoice in iFAR over a long period of time if you're going to keep adding charges to it, even though you might want to sync other new data into iForge Ahead. So let's see how to change that and set this invoice to sync. We'll tap on that invoice row and be back in the detail, and again you can check the totals here, and then we'll just simply open options and change to sync by clicking on this last change button. And now it's flagged to be synced, and we'll return to the list, and you'll see that it is set to be synced. That concludes this tutorial on invoices. Remember, whenever you're ready to sync, you'll return to the home page and use the gear button in the upper right and select the sync option, and that will require an internet connection. Thanks very much.